Hey, it's Kendra. I'm here today to rank some of the best witch houses in movies and television. I'll be focusing on the architectural details, the general look, and how the location works in the storyline of the movie. This list is my opinion, so if you have any witch castles, lairs, houses, or shacks that you think I missed, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to read them. And now, here are the top 10 witch residences in movies and TV. Number 10 on the list is Witches of Eastwick. It's an absolutely wild movie with Cher, Susan Sarandon, and Michelle Pfeiffer. And also Jack Nicholson is there. He plays a suitor/devil who the three friends unknowingly bring to their small Rhode Island town. For filming, at first they tried to use a small town in Rhode Island called Little Compton, but the local church rejected being involved due to the witchcraft of it all. So they moved most filming to Cohasset, and all mansion-related filming was done at Castle Hill in Ipswich, Mass. As you can see, Castle Hill is a gigantic mansion. It's on the Crane Estate, which is over 2,000 acres and includes a beach, formal gardens, huge lawns. It was originally a summer house for the Crane family, who were big in iron and pipe manufacturing. But it didn't always look like this. Around 1910, the family built an Italian Renaissance mansion, which you can see here. But Florence Crane did not like it, so it was torn down and the mansion we see now was finished in 1928. I would say this property isn't inherently witchy, hence why it's so high on the list. In terms of architectural details, it has a cupola. Even if this cupola isn't my personal style, it looks a little plopped on top. I do think a cupola would be convenient if you were a witch. Good purview of everything. A few other architectural details. These things on the side are called coins with a Q, and the stone pattern between the floors is called a belt course, because it's a belt, of course. Why is it ranked number 10? Although I love how the property was used in this movie, it's more about the wealth than anything that's particularly magic about it. I'm glad they chose Castle Hill, it looks amazing, but honestly, any mansion probably could have done the trick. If you've considered watching this movie, just go for it. It has one of the funniest early CGI scenes that simultaneously everyone and no one deserves to see. Now onto Stardust, our number 9 pick. This film also stars Michelle Pfeiffer as one of a triad of witches who are trying to get a star's heart to keep their magic strong and stay young forever. That star is literal star Claire Danes. This movie is so charming and fantastical. But let's talk about the witch residences. There are many witches in this movie, and one has a super chic caravan, but this isn't a van vlog, so we're going to focus instead on the witch's lair at the absolute bottom of a canyon. They based it on the Hall of Mirrors in Versailles, but instead of whites and golds, they used blacks and silvers. If you're wondering why it feels like you might have seen the Hall of Mirrors recently, it could have been because of that TikTok filter that was created for International Museum Day, which features Marie Antoinette jogging through the Hall of Mirrors and down some stairs. In this movie, I think they really captured the grandness. These are supposed to be formerly powerful witches who were vain and lived lavishly, so a goth version of Versailles seems perfect. There was also great use of glass and chandeliers, which added a fun, destructive element to something we always see so polished. Number 8 on the list is Love Witch, directed and created by Anna Biller. It's a truly aesthetic film with colors popping like old Technicolor films. Elaine, played by Samantha Robinson, rents an apartment that was previously owned by her witch mentor. Elaine continues to run into issues with every man she meets where they fall insanely in love with her. The interior shots were filmed in a different location, but the exterior details of this house really tie the movie together. The house is a real house in Arcata, California, and it's such a textbook Queen Anne style. Here's an early photo of the house, and you can really see how barely anything architecturally has been changed on the exterior. Also, the Queen Anne style in the US is completely different than the British Queen Anne style, so if this isn't Baroque enough for you, that's why. This house was built in 1888, right in the middle of the 20-year span when Queen Anne's were really popular. I'm going to use this older photo to point a few characteristics that make this a Queen Anne versus other Victorian styles. The round tower, the steep roof with the enclosed gable, the overhang with all sorts of brackets and dentils, the lace-like spindlework around the porch, the different shingle types, the creepy Victorian child looking at the camera, all classics of a Queen Anne style house. I really appreciate how the entire movie matches the over-the-topness of this Queen Anne, and it really screams Cool Witch apartment to me.
Oh, Trish, I love it. It's just beautiful.
Really?
Our number 7 pick is Eve's Bayou. This film stars Samuel L. Jackson, Megan Good, and Jurnee Smollett, who will be showing up again on this list. The movie is set in the 1960s and tells the story of two sisters who, despite their family's outward success, are dealing with some disturbing family dynamics. Magic and witchcraft is a major player in the plot. Roger Ebert called Eve's Bayou one of the very best films of the year. Even with critics' praise, it received no Oscar nominations. Now, onto the historic home that was used for filming. The property is called Otis House in Louisiana and is located in a state park on the north side of Lake Pontchartrain. Most of the movie was filmed on location, and they used both the exterior and interior of the house, which always brings a movie to the next level for me. In a lot of documentation for Otis House, they define it as a Queen Anne style. To me, it also has a lot of French colonial influences, like the long tall windows and the two-story porch. The house was built in 1885, and seeing the other Queen Anne style from Love Witch right before this is a great reminder that every house style has a million different variations, and a lot is based on time period. I loved how much the natural elements of the area were worked into this movie. The trees, the Spanish moss, Elzora's home on stilts in the bayou. I think this movie did a fantastic job making you feel really immersed in the location. Now we're moving on to a movie that I have so much respect for. The Witch, starring Anya Taylor-Joy, is set in the mid-1600s, where her family has to leave the colony over a religious dispute. The family makes their own settlement, and then the children in the family begin to disappear. The goat goes wild, and slowly the family begins to turn on each other. What's great about this movie is the authenticity. They use natural lighting and build the buildings how they would have been originally built. Something I hadn't thought of until reading some interviews was the circular saw wasn't invented until the 1700s, so clean lines of lumber just wouldn't make sense. This feels like an amazingly well-done origin story, especially since the surroundings, buildings, and language were so of the period. And it turns out a more realistic interpretation of witchcraft is based out of desperation, starvation, and sexism. Watching this film helped me realize that as a viewer, although I truly appreciate the historical accuracy, I prefer my witchy movies less woman imprisoned by confines of society and more campy fun. Speaking of campy fun, our number 5 pick is Hocus Pocus. I believe if I did not include this house, I would be cursed as a cat for the rest of my life. Hocus Pocus stars Bette Midler, Sarah Jessica Parker, and Kathy Najimy as witches who are looking to maintain their youth. As you can tell, that's a bit of a trend. The movie opens in 1693 in Salem, Massachusetts, where the Sanderson sisters bring a child back to their home and absorb her youth. In modern day, 1993, 3 kids go to the house, which has been turned into a witch museum, and accidentally resurrect the witches. Although the house was built fully on a set, there are a lot of exterior shots that were filmed in Salem, including a lot of the scenes from 1693. One of those places is Pioneer Village, which is a living museum that was built in 1930 for the 300-year anniversary of English settlers' arrival. In this area, when English settlers first arrived, they lived in wigwams and weetus that had been left for the season by the Namkyog people. Pioneer Village Museum has different examples of this early architecture, including wigwams and thatched roof cottages, a lot of which you can see in the early scenes of this film. Let's go back to the Sanderson sisters' home. Based on the time period of this house and some of the details, it would make sense to be post-medieval English, especially with the front having an overhang and that weird little attic window. But this house also has timber framing that was really not seen in the US till much later. There is also a water wheel, which would usually be found on a building that needs a lot of energy, like a mill. But considering I know very little about the realities of energy consumption for witchcraft, I love that it's there. Overall, I think this is one of those houses that is such a classic that informed a lot of how I think of witch houses, and it really set the bar. In this one, we're finally giving wizards' homes their due. Number 4 is Howl's Moving Castle, directed by Hayao Miyazaki. This is the only animated film on the list. Even though there are so many amazing witch castles in animation, this one goes above and beyond. It has so many homes and architectural styles, magical abilities, and the castle being such a main character that it's the title of the movie. Sophie is a hat maker who is cursed by a witch who turns her into an elderly woman. She decides to leave home in an attempt to break the curse. She ends up finding Howl's moving castle and becomes the cleaning lady. Many in the castle are cursed, and it follows their journey through an ongoing war. The town where Sophie starts is based on Colmar, France, where you can see a lot of half-timbered medieval houses. The castle has the ability to teleport between locations, where Howl has different shops under different aliases. The castle's true form is multiple buildings and metal put together on top of chicken legs. The thing I love about animation, and this movie in particular, is how much freedom there is for the building to change. Midway through the film, Howl redecorates through magic, and the interior goes from something almost medieval to a comfortable Victorian with a bathroom on the first floor. This movie is exciting and surprising, and the castle is a big part of that. Coming in at number 3 is The Spellman Mortuary, from The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. The show stars Kiernan Shipka as Sabrina Spellman. She's half mortal, half witch, and is trying to juggle having 2 very different lives. This house is so close to the top of the list because it's fun to see the direct line to the real house it was inspired by. You've probably heard of Nathaniel Hawthorne as the writer of The Scarlet Letter, the book that is always a reading assignment in 2000s rom-coms. Nathaniel Hawthorne also wrote a book called House of the Seven Gables that was published in 1851. The novel focuses on the house that Hawthorne's real-life relatives lived in Salem, Massachusetts. The family had connections to the Salem witch trials, and the book revolves around a curse on the house. This house is still standing in Salem and underwent some remodeling in the 1800s that gave it bigger windows. In Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, they've taken a lot of inspiration from the House of the Seven Gables, but also elongated the house to make it look even more foreboding. The roofs have a really steep pitch, a tall foundation, and unnecessarily tall chimneys. Although there is a morgue in the basement, so I don't know what the regulations would be on that. All the windows are the 17th century style, with diamond-shaped pieces of glass and casements, which are probably close to what would have originally been on the House of the Seven Gables. Over time, glass panes became easier and less expensive, so windows could let in more light, hence why the actual House of the Seven Gables upgraded in the 1800s. What I really like about this house is how dark the interior is. A house with windows from the 1600s would not be particularly bright, and this house has carpets and curtains, and the whole place is just stuffed with stuff. It really feels like the family are collectors, and when you're 400-year-old witches, you have a lot of things. The set house was used as the exterior and interior for the show's 4 seasons, and when the show concluded, they tore down the house. Our next house also has a similar demolition story. Number 2 on the list is Practical Magic. Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman play sisters who are adopted by their aunts after their mother's death. Before their mother died, she had placed a spell on herself to avoid future heartbreak. The spell is then passed on to the 2 sisters, morphing into a curse. This is my favorite feel-good witch movie, which makes no sense since it's by no means happy and many people die. But also, it's under 2 hours and it's kooky, and Nicole Kidman and Sandra Bullock light up the screen. It also helps that the house is absolutely gorgeous. This is also one of the few witch houses that is painted white. The house is definitely meant to be more light and ethereal both inside and outside. The production designer mentioned in an interview, trying to dispel the whole witch stereotype. But what type of house is this? It's a combination of multiple Victorian styles. It has a tower and a cupola that seems to double as a lighthouse. There are Gothic revival finials, which are those little pointy things on top. And as you know by now, a Queen Anne wraparound porch. The house is right on the water and looks like it's been there for ages, overgrown plants and trees, along with an attached greenhouse. All the interiors for this house were actually created in LA. I could go on forever about this place, but I was not the only one who liked it. Barbara Streisand apparently called the production designer and asked where it was and if she could buy it. Like most constructed for movie houses, it had already been torn down. Now let's move on to number 1. It's Lovecraft Country, the television show set in the 1950s, starring Jonathan Majors as Atticus, who is living through the racist horrors of the United States along with the monster horrors from the works of H.P. Lovecraft. Monsters are not the only magical piece of this story, and witchcraft is a big part of the show. Atticus's childhood friend and love interest, Journey Smollett, purchases a falling-apart Victorian mansion in a white neighborhood in Chicago. Many plots start and end in this house, and its importance in the storyline grows as the season continues. The house is an actual residence in Newnan, Georgia. The home was originally a Greek revival, but in the 1880s, it was given a full revamp to the Second Empire house we see today. Second Empires were really popular in the United States and were ideal for remodeling older buildings since it added a full-sized livable attic. If you're looking to spot a Second Empire, the best thing to look for is the mansard roof. This is more than just a Vampire Weekend song. It's a dual-pitched roof with a super steep, practically vertical slope, and often with dormer windows built in. This Second Empire house also has a built-in tower. What puts this house in the top spot? Both the interior and exterior were used for filming, and according to these photos from an old real estate listing, all the beautiful details that you can see in the show are actually in this house. It's insanely beautiful, and it fits the bill for spooky witch house with some real Addams Family energy. I hope you enjoyed this ranking of the top witch houses in movies and television. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments on what you liked, what I missed, and if there's any house rankings you'd like to see in the future. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you on the next one.